facilities there.
There's been other developments along Millmore Road that have generated certain contributions, some affordable housing, and in most instances fairly sizable public open space contributions, so that they've been secured. This site is more challenging to develop because of the topography. Most of the other developments along Millmore Road have undergone viability appraisals, and they've generated what they've generated. And likewise, this scheme's been through a viability appraisal, and it's coming out with this sort of quite reduced contribution. I mean, the money could be used towards POS if, or a proportion of it be used towards POS. That's up to members.
Councillor Sim.
Thank you, Chair. It does worry me, this one. We're getting more and more of this developers coming and saying it's not viable. Well, why did they look at it in the first place? They knew full well what they were buying when they buy that sort of land. They knew it could well be waterlogged, etc. And here we are. And I just think that it's now beginning to be something that developers are using quite liberally, when it really is a bit of a nonsense, because there is profit in this site. They know that, and they know that the policy of the council is some affordable houses, and it's you know, it's not a brownfield site or anything like that, is it? You know, I mean, it's quite a good site as regards other ways. So I'm not happy really that they come in with this viability option, and we're actually losing out on it, because the infrastructure and that round there needs some input, and affordable housing needed some good input, but we don't seem to get in much of anything. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Marchant.
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Councillor Sims has said in that regard. There seems to be a number of applications on what you would call prime sites, prime greenfield sites, where when the viability appraisals are coming in, this come back to an amendments to the application, and this is despite the fact that developers or potential developers are doing a significant amount of work before applications come in. They're doing core sampling, they're doing testing and stuff like that. And it just seems to be very unfortunate. I can think of at least half a dozen examples of where that's going on. And it is, if we knew that information at the beginning, when it comes to the planning committee, we might be in a better position to actually shape some of these applications. It just feels rather unfortunate that this keeps happening again and again and again.
Any further contributions? Can I just echo what the two colleagues have said here? But we are in where we are, unfortunately, and this I know about it because this is my home patch. But I'm just a bit. I find it a bit strange about affordable housing. Where we're going to have affordable housing, because Millmore Road now, it's run out. It's God knows how many houses have actually gone on Millmore Road itself. But as I say, we are. I think the ward council's got to get together on this one and find out what we can, because there is little or nothing for children to actually have a play area. Although, to be fair, they've got the moors there if they want to wander up onto the moors. It's just further along the road. But I'm going to have to support it because of the fact that it's PO land, and they've got us. They tell us that they've had a rigorous assessment of why they can't give us any more houses. But as Councillor Sims has said, unfortunately, we're not in a position to be able to challenge that, because we don't obviously have that kind of knowledge. But I do hope that it is rigorous and really and truly, because otherwise we've been sold a pup each time. Thank you. Prepared to make? Well, no, I won't move it. No, I'll let somebody else move. Is somebody prepared to move it?
Yeah, I hold all the same reservations, but given the situation, I will move that we accept it.
That's proposed by Councillor Walker, seconded by Councillor Uller. All those in favour, please show. Against? 3. Abstentions? 2.
Items approved.
Page 69. Myrie Lane. Oh, yes, that's the one that we've deferred. Page 93. Swallow Lane, Golka.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Drake and I am the case officer for this application. The application relates to a piece of greenfield land and the site boundary is shown on the screen above. The site lies to the west of Golka on land to the south of Swallow Lane. Members visited the site this morning. The site is allocated as provisional open land known as POL in the Intree Development Plan and for housing in the Emerging Local Plan. In terms of context, to the north of the site are the existing properties of Swallow Lane, which are these properties, these terrace properties here on the plan. There are 2 further detached properties here as well, which are also accessed off Swallow Lane. To the east of the site is a cricket pitch, which is this land here, which is set at a lower level to the application site. The adjoining land to the west, which is here, is undeveloped and forms part of the wider POL application. The land to the south is used for grazing and is just greenfield land. So this application is submitted in full and is for 19 dwellings. The access will be taken from here, which is where the bus parked this morning for our site visit, and it's just between the existing houses of Swallow Lane. 4 3-bedroom dwellings and 15 4-bedroom dwellings would be provided. The dwellings would be positioned around a centrally placed public open space area, and a cul-de-sac layout is proposed as shown on the plan there. In terms of visual amenity, the proposed development is considered acceptable. When viewed from the south and southwest, the dwellings would be read against the context of the existing housing stock. The development would also be softened by the tree planting in the rear gardens of plots 7 to 13 as shown on the plan and indicated there by my mouse. The design of the dwellings is considered acceptable by officers. So on the screen now you can see the street scene plan, which illustrates their proposed appearance. They'd be constructed from high quality artificial stone with areas of render. Officers considered that in this instance and given the context and variety of materials in the area, this is acceptable and a condition will be imposed requiring full details of the materials to be submitted for approval. So during the course of the application, 12-metre high protective cricket fencing was introduced to the scheme and the elevations are shown on the plan here. This would run along the eastern boundary of the application site with the cricket pitch. So it's all this boundary here which is shown by my mouse cursor. The function of this is to protect the proposed development from risk of ball strike from the cricket pitch that's just adjacent to the site. Given the location of the cricket ground and the proposed function, this element is considered to be on balance acceptable by officers. In terms of residential amenity, the closest properties, as I previously said, are these properties of Swallow Lane. So you've got the terrace properties here and the detached properties here. And the development has been designed so that the distances between windows as set out in BE12 of the UDP have been met. Amendments to Plot 1, which is this plot here, and Plot 19 have been negotiated during the course of the application in order to ease relationships with the existing properties, and the relationships are set out on this diagram here. So this section here shows the existing properties on Swallow Lane, the terrace properties, and this is the front elevation of Plot 19 with a side elevation that would face towards them. Again, this is number 59C, Swallow Lane, and that shows a relationship with proposed Plot 1. Internally, it's considered that the future occupants would have a good standard of amenity, with the distances of B12 being largely met throughout the site. Occupants would benefit from private parking and private amenity spaces. I'll just pass across to my highways officer to discuss this part of the scheme.
Through you, Chair, Steve Samson, Highways Development Control. Highways Development Management. To summarise the highways section of the report, the proposed access of Swallow Lane would incorporate a footway build-out on Swallow Lane to provide pedestrian access to the site and provide the required visibility relative to recorded vehicle speeds along Swallow Lane. In terms of the forecasted peak hour traffic associated with the development and the internal layout, 13 to 15 two-way AM and PM peak hour movements are forecast along Swallow Lane, which has around 300 two-way movements within the peak hours. The internal layout would be a shared surface with 6 form visitor spaces, two of which would be close to the site access with Swallow Lane. In terms of residential parking, the proposed residential parking would provide 2 spaces for the 3-bedroom dwellings and at least 3 spaces for the 4-bedroom dwellings. Thank you, Chair.
Just to conclude, in relation to planning obligations, as set out in the update, the development is now providing 3 affordable dwellings in the form of starter homes. This now makes the scheme compliant with policy, and this will be secured by Section 106 agreement. In terms of provision of public open space, it will be provided on the site and is compliant with policy in terms of its size. A small area of natural play would also be provided. This will be managed by a private management agreement as set out in the Section 106. There have been 27 representations from 20 individuals which have been in objection to the scheme, with the key areas of concern being highways, the impact on the cricket pitch, residential amenity and drainage. These are set out in full in the report. So, in summary, in light of the Council's housing land supply position and for the retails detailed in the report, the application is considered to represent a sustainable form of development. It is therefore recommended for approval in accordance with the recommendations set out in the update. Thank you.
We have John Thorpe, who objects to the plan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the trustees of Gurkha Cricket Club. Cricket has been played on this site at Gurkha for 141 years, and we have always had an easement to retrieve balls landing on the proposed development land. A cricket ball can be a dangerous projectile, and for health and safety reasons, we wish to eliminate, as far as possible, all risk to our new neighbours and not upset them, and to indemnify ourselves against any insurance claims for death, injury or damage to property. Cricket bats are now getting heavier and more 2020 matches are being played, which means more sixes are hit, and we have county and test match cricketers coming here in the Premier League that we play in. We feel that the fence, therefore, should be the maximum 21.5 metres high, so as to virtually eliminate any going over the fence, as stated in the Labour Sport report. We must, however, be able to retrieve any if they do clear the fence, both during building construction and afterwards. It should also be a planning condition that the fence has to be upgraded as and when required at the developer's expense. We believe that house number 7 is too near the fence, as all the others in that line have the garden first and not the house. Finally, the developer must ensure that there is no increased run-off of water onto our cricket ground. Thank you.
Graham Woodhead, you also object.
President Secretary at Gorka Cricket Club, and as stated in item 16 on the agenda, number 7.2, the club has placed on record its objection to this scheme. Not because we have a NIMBY mentality and are against change, but we feel the location of the scheme is inappropriate due to its close proximity to the CC. We appreciate that we need housing and affordable housing, as Councillor Richard pointed out. I have lived in Gorka for over 60 years, and in that time there have been many housing developments all over the village, most of which now appear well established. Throughout this time, the infrastructure and the village has changed little. In particular, there have been very few changes to roads in the village. Access is basically via Laymore Road, Scar Lane or Swallow Lane. And although changes were made to the Jubilee Square, Laymore Road junction with Town End, where houses were demolished, there's been very few major changes to the roads. With this in mind, it appears to be putting even more pressure on Swallow Lane by the erection of a further 19 dwellings. I realise that doesn't sound very many, but putting pressure on an already grown-in road infrastructure we have now. As other objections have mentioned in this written submissions, the access in Swallow Lane is a major issue now without the new developments, particularly on Saturday mornings. Cars often park with a wheel on the pavement, and it is very difficult to walk with a pram or a wheelchair. It's even worse when it's bin emptying day. The T-junction between numbers 59B and 61 could be a difficult road to leave, as is the view from leaving the cricket field, is often blocked by parked cars. Double yellow lines are not an option, as parking is needed on the street. Many cars now park on each side of Swallow Lane, and this can increase vastly on busy match days at the CC. My immediate family already own 10 cars between us, and it's not difficult to work out how many extra cars 19 houses will bring to the village. At the moment, the roads cannot cope, so any increase in housing will not ease the situation. That is part of our objection to the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I just want to start off my submission by talking about the principle of development on this site. As Ms Ray pointed out, this is provisional open land, which is likely to go for, has been designated as housing land in the emerging plan. Our concern about that, and we've already seen that in the way the planning inspector is looking at the emerging plan, is there are concerns about the allocation of greenfield sites in urban areas. Now, although Gorka, we call Gorka a more predominantly rural area, this is exactly the sort of allocation we're talking about. And this isn't just the beginning of it. As the planning officer pointed out, this is part of a larger provisional open land allocation. And we have concerns about that. As soon as it's allocated, as soon as it's built on, that land will be gone. And for some of the other reasons that Mr Woodhead and Mr Thorpe have pointed out, we feel there's a lack of strategic view on that. I'm going to come back to the highways issues in a minute. The issue about the proximity to the cricket ground and the fencing. Again, I know Gorka is a small village, but we have a cricket club, a couple of cricket clubs, but this club in particular has got an international reputation. And it would be unfortunate if the sporting activity is impinged upon by this development. And also if people are living next to this ground are not aware of the implications of them moving there. Mr Thorpe mentioned about a fence 21.5 metres high. That is what's been recommended. And there might be issues there. If that is actually what we need to do to protect houses from this development, is it the right thing to do? And what would be the visual amenity of actually putting in adequate protection? And would that make the development unacceptable? I think the other issue about the proximity to the cricket ground is drainage. And we know that on other applications, the geology and geography of Gorka, it's clay on millstone, there's a lot of streams, and developments can have a consequential impact on flooding in either major or minor flooding in other areas. The drainage scheme needs to be absolutely right to make sure that there are no problems, it mitigates problems at the moment, but also that anything that might arise in the future is sorted out by the developer promptly and appropriately. The highways issue. Now, this is again, we see an example, and I appreciate the work done by the highways officer, but it's about getting in and off the site. And there are ongoing implications for doing that. It isn't just about coming on that little bit of Swallow Lane. If you saw this morning when you're on the bus, actually Swallow Lane narrows quite significantly as you go westbound, and it narrows going down to the village. There's a footway on the northern side of Swallow Lane, but that doesn't go the full length. And you've got children walking down that road to go to school, and there's no footway for them. And you've got residents on. I've been up there this morning, just before you went on the bus, and there's parts of it that are safe, there are parts of it that are not. And we believe that it's not just about getting in and off the site. We believe that additional traffic movements, the additional... let me just look at the numbers. Sorry. 15, was it? We said. In the morning and evening peak will make a significant difference to that. Highway safety is a major concern, and I want the committee to think about that seriously. We've got a couple of figures for the traffic on there, 29.8 and 30 miles per hour at the 85th Central. Those of us who know about that, what that says, that's very close to the speed limit. In fact, one of them's over the speed limit. I have never seen that in an area so congested as this. Usually you're more likely to get figures between 25 and 30, much lower than that. And what that tells us is that 15% of the traffic up and down Swallow Lane are travelling in excess of the 30 miles an hour speed limit. That's 30 vehicles in the morning and evening peak alone. And that is not safe. I know it's not above the speed limit. Well, actually, one of them is above it. It is not safe. And no matter what we do to improve visibility, or again, you could try traffic camera, there is no way you can put a footway along the full length of Swallow Lane from where people walk, Heathwood Drive at the top, down to the town end at the bottom. And that again, it's a highway safety issue. So there are issues about allocation of greenfield and whether this is strategic or not. There are arguments about safe highway safety. The point that Mr Woodhead made about infrastructure...
Andrew, your time's up.
Oh,
5 minutes.
Fine.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We have Jonathan Ainley, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Good afternoon. Jonathan Ainley speaking on behalf of the applicant Jones Homes. As you've heard, the site benefits from POL allocation and a draft housing allocation in the emerging local plan. We believe the delivery of 19 new homes on this site will assist the council in meeting its housing targets whilst providing a high quality scheme which enhances the area. Members will note the proximity of the cricket club, as you've heard, to the site, and our proposed netting to the shared boundary is 12 metres in height. By their nature, village cricket clubs are often located in close proximity to housing developments, and the club is already bordered by housing to the north and east. Sport England requested further information to enable an assessment of the relationship of the site with the club. A ball strike assessment was subsequently undertaken by industry experts Labo Sport, who were recommended by the sport's governing body, the England and Wales Cricket Board. The assessment concluded that although there is always the potential for a freak shot, the proposed netting solution would significantly reduce the frequency of ball strikes. Such netting is commonly used at cricket clubs across the country, and Sport England have confirmed their acceptance of this as a mechanism to ensure an appropriate relationship between the club and the development. In respect of affordable housing, and following detailed discussions with officers, we are pleased to offer 3 affordable units on site, fully in line with policy requirements. Coupled with the provision of on-site public open space, which includes a natural play area, we hope members will consider these to be positive community benefits arising from the scheme. A draft Section 106 agreement to secure these is already with the Council. The development would also deliver significant economic benefits in terms of investment and jobs throughout the construction phase, new homes bonus payments and additional council tax receipts. Jones Homes have a long-standing commitment to investing in Kirklees, having delivered homes across the district for over 20 years, along with having their regional head office in Cleckheaton. If consent is granted and subject to discharging conditions, Jones Homes intend to make an early start on site to deliver these benefits quickly. The site lies within Flood Zone 1, so is at the lowest risk of flooding. There are no ecological constraints, and we also note Highway Officer's professional opinion raises no objections to the proposals. Since submitting the application back in October last year, we have worked with officers throughout the process to further improve the development. This includes increased spacing between plots and enhancing landscaping across the site. The detailed officer's report sets out the principle of development can be supported
30 seconds.
given the POL allocation and the draft housing allocation. Given this and the stated benefits of the scheme, we hope members will feel able to support the officer recommendation to approve the application. Thank you, Chair. Can I also, Chair, please just pass on my condolences to all who knew Vanessa. I'm sure she'll be very sadly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Members. Well, I'll start if you like. Goldkirk, I was up there this morning. I've been to the cricket ground a couple of times. So when you've got the 12-metre, I'll go on about the fence first of all, a 12-metre fence. But you have a further drop. That fence is built more or less almost 10 metres up from the ground, from the actual cricket ground itself. So that in itself is going to take some hitting to get over there. I mean, if you compare it with Kirkburton, I would say Kirkburton is a lot nearer than what Golker is. It's POL land. We're stuck again. Over to you. Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've been going to the emerging local plan meetings, and I can tell you the inspector is not happy when she was told that some of these had gone through before she even had a chance to assess them, so she wasn't happy. And I sympathise with the people in Golka with this. The road infrastructure is not good, but you know it comes across that we've got to do it. Choose what? I don't believe in that. Can I see a picture of the fence? Nobody shows a picture of the fence.
Through you, Chair. These are the proposed elevations. I've also got a photograph on the system that's been provided by the applicant, if you'd like to see that. I have an example of it somewhere else.
Yeah, because that tells me nothing on a straight line.
How do I get...
Right, okay. Yeah.
So that's on top of the wall?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Thank you, Chair, for that. So as I say, I have my reservations, but we'll see what happens with the rest of the committee.
Councillor Holmwood, then Councillor Ola.
Just a small point, really. It was just about the parking and the garage dimensions. I didn't quite follow in the report that it says highways have concerns about that, but because it's happened elsewhere before, we're just going to accept it. Is it not the case that there has to be a certain size for a car to fit in, or not? Or am I missing the point? Surely it's either suitable or it isn't.
Through you, Chair. Two of the proposed internal garages for two of the properties do fall slightly short of what the standards are in terms of being 6x3, which would be the ideal length. Now, this is Jones Homes' standard property type that have been built throughout the borough and beyond, and we have taken the view that that's not an issue to refuse the application on. It is not something that's causing us any concern in terms of highway safety. They're just a little bit smaller internally than what we would like. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think I raised the concerns about the highways on the bus, and you know, maybe I'm a bit cynical, but you know, I always look for more movements than and there certainly is, you know, some concern for the highways for me. The ball strike assessment, have we missed that somewhere, or was that a report that was taken Sorry, who was striking and who was hitting? I mean, where's that report? What we just say? We've just got that a ball strike assessment was done and it was okay, but what are we measuring against?
Through you, Chair. Just to give some context, Sport England were consulted on the application originally, and they put in an objection on the basis that there'd been no ball strike risk assessment undertaken to show what mitigation would need to be put up to protect the proposed dwellings from risk of ball strike. So the applicants have undertaken their own ball strike risk assessment by one of the people that was recommended by Sport England. And what they do is they model the trajectories from where people are hitting the ball on the cricket pitch, and they can come up with graphs that basically show the height at certain levels of being hit and what that certain angle is, and where that will then land on the proposed development site. And from that, they can then decipher what is the necessary mitigation to be put into place here. So in this instance, they put in they basically said that if the fencing was going to be 21 metres high, which has been just stated by some of the speakers there, this would almost completely remove the risk of balls landing beyond the cricket pitch. But they state this may not be practical or proportionate. Therefore, they say that actually, if they put a minimum mitigation height of 15 metres to the full orientation to where it is proposed now, that will be appropriate, because it may not stop all shots landing beyond the boundary, but it will significantly reduce their frequency. Now, because of the land level changes that you saw on site today, the current mitigation is between 3 and 5 metres already. That's why 12 metres is proposed. Sport England have reviewed that, they've discussed that with the Cricket Board, and they've removed their objection on the basis that this is provided. Thank you.
Councillor Walker, then Councillor Sock.
I've got concerns about the extension of the western boundary of Gurkha. We had 2 applications were passed at the last committee meeting which extended development to the west. This is a further development, and I think it is starting to affect the appearance of the village of Gurkha, which is having a significant effect as well on the views from the Combe Valley looking over towards Gurkha. And it's removing the boundary between Gurkha and other settlements such as Wellhouse and Bolster Moor. And I think in the long term, this is devaluing really the beauty of the area. I'm also a minor concern, but I think one of the is important, is the building material issue. I think there was an objection about this. And I wonder why artificial stone is deemed acceptable for what are going to be quite expensive large houses, when in many other areas, when new properties are being built, we seem to insist on natural stone. And I think it was last one or one before planning meeting, we were told by officers that the difference in cost between natural stone and artificial stone is actually not very high now. And I think if these houses are going to be built, at least they should be built from the best possible material. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. I think almost all the members have some concern, some or other way. I think there is still need a bit more clarity on this issue raised by members of this committee. I think it will be a good idea if we defer this application for further consultation with the developer and come back on the next meeting to make sure all the concerns raised by the member have been listened. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the best thing if we. I'll second that, and if we can, going forward.
You second what? What does Councillor Sokol said with regard to? You wish to defer it. You didn't say that. Thank you.
I'm going to second that deferral that Councillor Sokol's just said, and if we can, going forward, if we could have some sort of clarity on this ball striking assessment thing, first thing, whether 21 metres, 15 metres or 12 metres, what is the actual definitive guidelines, because we're going off 3 and 5 plus 12. the materials that Councillor Walker's mentioned, and then the drainage. The drainage is suggested that it's not a problem on the report, but the residents are saying that there is going to be some sort of issue. So just those things. Possible netting, Greenfield. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I can answer the business of it, certainly as I see it, as regards the material used. It's mixed there. There's brick, there's stone, there's all sorts. It's a multiplicity of different material being used on there. But that's as I saw it.
Hear what you're saying. I think the important thing that you have to take to starting point is what's in the report that's provided by your officers. That's our professional recommendation, taking account of the issues identified. So taking in reverse order the drainage officer of the council has looked at the application, looked at the details submitted. We have had the representations, so I don't think we would come to a different position on that matter than what's set out. And with the net strike issue, the bull strike issue, there is no set guidance. It's about what is the risk, and the risk is been deemed at a 15 high boundary treatment, so that's from the ground level of the proposed development to the top of the net. So you take across the existing level change between 3 and 5, put a 12 metre high net on that, so you're either going to have 15 to 17 metres of coverage between the two. I don't think we would arrive at a different conclusion than that, because that's what the experts at Sport England are saying is acceptable. The experts who have done the report are saying that's an appropriate balance. So it's an amenity judgment. On the final point about materials, I hear what you're saying about character and local distinctiveness. But I think in terms of what the quality of the product is, it has been used before. So it's whether you're saying to us actually the artificial stone material they're using is not appropriate, and you want us to revisit that for a more natural finish. That's fine, we can listen to that and take that away. But I think the other 2 points, there isn't anything more we would be able to report to you on. So I just want to be clear about what we can do and what we probably can't develop any further, councillors.
I do believe the overriding factor is it's BOR land, and we haven't got a local plan again. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was going to actually second the deferment, but I'd also like Highways to have a further look at the impact on the highway there, because it is bad. I go up there quite a lot, usually when I'm going up towards Scape. It's really, really parked up. The speed of traffic is awful, and as you go up even further, the road just gets so narrow and so windy, and I think they really do need to take a further look. Also, with this fencing, is there quite a lot of bird life around that area? Because I'm just wondering, if you've got such a high fence like that, if I were a bird and you flew into that, I think it's, I don't know whether you've got suicidal birds in Coker, to be honest, but I think that might need looking at a little bit more as well.
Can we have a call to order now? Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. I think natural stone would be the thing, and we should always push for that. Just because it's where it is and there's a few bad quality buildings around it, don't mean to say that we can't have quality. We need that quality. I was going to suggest bird strike on them nets. It needs something there if it does go ahead. I'm happy for it to be deferred. And also I'm happy that, same as I say, the inspector on the local plan, she is not happy, and I think that if we deferred this until her decisions are made, I don't think that it would go amiss to do that, and I don't think that quite honestly, that we would be pushed to an inspector's appeal. She's saying that loud and clear. I mean, you know that in the planning office, what's happening there. You know she's not happy. and we'll see the outcomes on one or two of the sites. She was quite alarmed the other week that some of these major sites had been passed and gone through before she'd had chance to look at them in the local plan. So that's where we are. I don't think it's all one way, because developers out there think it is, but it isn't. So we need to get quality, we need to get it right, and without huge investments in infrastructure, Golker is similar to Old Firth. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. We're not getting the money spent on the infrastructure. And the government are saying, you know, infrastructure, look at it first before you pass the plan. We don't seem to be getting any of that in some of our applications that's coming forward. So I rest my case, Chair.
Well, I've heard, and we've had a mover for deferment, been moved and seconded. All those in favour of deferment, please show. Against?
Through you, Chair, can we just confirm that that's in particular regarding the palliative materials for the external walls? There is something in the report already about the risk of bird strike in the fencing, but we can provide a little more information on that. And those were the two things. I know that Councillor Sims raised something about the inspector in the local plan as well, but that's not necessarily something that we would defer the application on. But the other two issues, we will come back, and we will be 6 weeks further down the line at that stage as well.
And we might not have all the same members here.
Through you, Chair, in relation to highways, yep, we can look at the highways again. However, it's acknowledged that Swallow Lane is reasonably well used, and that's 300 vehicles in the peak hour, which is 5 per minute. That's two-way. So, but it actually feels worse than it is because of the on-street parking. I appreciate that. So it's not a free-flowing road, but it's not dangerous. In terms of evidence base, there's been 2 accidents from the centre of Golker up to 200 metres east of the access in 5 years. One of the 2 accidents, one in 2013 and one in 2014. The 2013 accident involved a horse and cart. There's no real trend in terms of accidents, but I do appreciate it's not the most pleasant road to use as a driver, but evidence-based is it is not a dangerous road. We can look at it again, but I'm not sure I'll be coming back with anything, or should I say Highways DM will be coming back with anything further. Thank you, Chair.
That item is deferred now to look at those reasons, the palette of material, and to emphasise and point out the areas of ecology which have been already addressed in the report, but perhaps more information will be added to it to bolster that information.
So we move on now to page 121, Wellhouse Lane, Kirklees.
Thank you, Chair.
My name is Hannah Thickett and I am the case officer for this application. The application has been brought to Huddersfield Subcommittee at the request of Councillor Musarrat Khan. Members visited the site this morning. The aerial photograph shown highlights the location of the proposed development, as shown by the red line, in context with the surrounding area. The site occupies a parcel of land covering a total of 5.3 hectares and is allocated under both the UDP and PDLP as Greenbelt. The application relates to the erection of a building for the purposes of mixed-use agriculture and education at 20 Wellhouse Lane. The building will primarily be used for the storage of agricultural machinery, equipment and hay storage, with a secondary element of its use for shelter and classrooms for the educational visits the applicant runs at the site. The development subject to this application is constructed with an inner wall of breeze block and an outer wall of natural stone with an insulated cavity. The building's design includes stone corner coins, window lintels and sills, alongside other architectural features designed from stone and incorporated into the front and rear elevations of the building. The sitting and detailed design of the building is considered to cause harm to the openness of the green belt and in turn the visual amenity of the area. This photograph shows the relationship of the new development in relation to other buildings on site. To the north of the development here is an existing large agricultural style building and a number of shipping containers. To the south is the main dwelling house. There has also been a recent approval for a mixed domestic use building to the west of the site. As stated in the report, the erection of a new building in the green belt is inappropriate development by definition, unless it meets the exceptions outlined in paragraph 89 of the NPPF or very special circumstances exist. In an attempt to justify the development, the applicant has provided what they consider to be very special circumstances. This can be read in paragraphs 10.8 to 10.22 of the officer report. The applicant has submitted a significant amount of information regarding both the educational and agricultural activities run on site at 20 Wellhouse Lane. Whilst the evidence does show that these activities are carried out on the site, it is considered by officers that the extent to which these are carried out would not amount to the very special circumstances needed to support a new building within the green belt, and the benefit that may arise from the educational facility would not be substantial enough to clearly outweigh the harm to the green belt. In total, 9 representations have been received, with 8 in support and 1 in objection, along with a large number of submissions from Parkinson Lane Primary School, where the applicant is head teacher. Points raised within these representations are summarised within the agenda. Further representations have also been received from the applicant, objector and a petition signed by 4 local residents following the publishing of the committee report. A summary of these points raised in the representations are noted in the agenda update. Members received the applicant's representation in full on Monday the 26th and have also received the objector's comments in full on the 28th of March in order for members to make their own assessments of the comments raised. To conclude, it is of officer's opinion that the applicant's very special circumstances do not clearly outweigh the harm to the openness of the green belt, nor is it considered that its design is acceptable for its intended purpose in this sensitive location. The proposal would therefore conflict with Chapter 9 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Concerns have also been raised by the HSE, who advise against the granting of planning permission, as set out in full in the agenda in paragraphs 10.37 to 10.41. However, should members consider the reason for refusal is unreasonable, then it would be necessary to refer it back to the HSE. If members are minded to agree with officer's recommendation of refusal, then the officer would seek authority to take enforcement action to remove the building, given the application is retrospective. Thank you, Chair.
We have Roger Blackmore, who's speaking in support.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to support this application because of the very special circumstances which we feel far outweigh any potential harm to the green belt. These benefits will be sustainable through the recreation and education of children for many years to come. Hyacinth Farm has organised a multitude of activities for children over 17 years. Many thousands of children have had their first camping experience, staying away from home and enabling them to learn about the farm's environment. To see the joy on the children's faces is a delight. Seeing them enjoy the contact with animals they wouldn't normally come into contact with is priceless. Watching them hunting for eggs for breakfast or planting trees, coming back as strapping teenagers, telling you they planted a particular tree, then measuring themselves against it and asking why it isn't getting any bigger, then realising they're growing themselves. Some children ask about Maximus, the goose, that was bred in an incubator at the school and set free to wander where he wants. These are experiences and memories that we all treasure. The activities have been exceptional in that they encourage community cohesion on so many levels, on a social level, on a cultural level, between differing ages and backgrounds within different religions, all coming together to enjoy the countryside in safety and harmony, freely mixing and sharing each other's company. This application is exceptional for other reasons. The project teaches the children the importance of the countryside. It involves teenagers exploring humanity and taking responsibility for younger, more vulnerable children. It impacts massively on the self-esteem and confidence of all taking part. The activities take place regularly throughout the year, but are hampered by inclement weather. There have been many visits cancelled or curtailed due to lack of shelter, resulting in disappointed children and frustrated staff. So much work goes into the organisation of each visit, informing parents, setting up activities, the task of completing the risk assessments, which are sent off to be scrutinised. The location of the building has been carefully considered, so it has least impact on the green belt. It's located close to other buildings used for agriculture and for recreational purposes. The separation of activities in its layout has been carefully thought out and will work well. It's built within the footprint of a structure that was potentially dangerous to children due to close proximity of farm machinery. Trying to shelter out of the wind and rain with children in inappropriate clothing is nigh on impossible. Very little can survive the strong winds blowing across the Pennines. This planning application is so vitally important to the ongoing success of the project. Thank you.
Who's also speaking in support.
I very much support this application. It is a fantastic facility for deprived children. As a user of Hyacinth Farm, I am here to represent the children, parents and governors of the schools that have benefited greatly from the generosity of the applicant. The owners open up their family home at no cost to our families. The children I serve are predominantly from ethnic backgrounds. They have very little experience of the wider world and their social skills are underdeveloped. The farm has helped us to break down many cultural barriers and fears of the community. A range of day activities, reward trips and residential camping experiences throughout the year have resulted in children and parents learning about the countryside. They mix with other communities, also insular in their outlook. This is Hyacinth Farm. For many of our mums, days like these become the family day out, where all the family can join in. Young and old alike are welcomed with tea and cakes. The adults attempt to show their sporting prowess by taking the children on at a tug-of-war, quoits, rounders, cricket, solitary moments where a newly married couple, watched by their chaperones, can fly kites, epitomises the ever-evolving social and cultural structures that make up a British value system. This is Hyacinth Farm. For our children to take part in activities such as laser quest and archery, and just to be in the countryside with family and friends in a safe, secure environment is indeed a very rare treat. Our visits to the farm have benefited other local tourist attractions such as Dalton Nature Reserve, Castle Hill, Bretton Hall, National Coal Mining Museum and the Royal Armouries. They have, of course, impacted on other businesses such as shops and food outlets and the local Brighouse transport company we use. Our families talk about aspiration, but need the inspiration to do well. The applicant talks about education being the key, not just intellectually, but emotionally, socially, physically and spiritually. Many of our children are taking away this message. They have an investment in the wider community. This is Hyacinth Farm. I don't agree with the officer's report. I see no visual harm to the Greenbelt or indeed an impact on the openness of the Greenbelt. But I do see children and families gaining in confidence, becoming educated and contributing to society in many ways. The owners have improved the district's image by getting rid of unsightly panelled asbestos and concrete building and use recycled materials. As an educationalist, the design of the building is perfect. Dangers locked away and multifunctional rooms large enough to take groups of up to 35 children.
Seconds.
The building is much like the many upland farm buildings seen in the district. This directly contrasts to the site of the nearby chemical works and the large asbestos barns located nearby. This innovative approach is Hyacinth Farm. I ask the question, is this small patch of hard-standing area worth more than the activities and continued and soon-to-be expanded experiences? May I also thank the owners of Hyacinth Farm for many years of support to our children. This has resulted in a saving of over £365,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I start with a profuse apology for this retrospective planning application? It's come about as a result of gross misunderstanding on my part and the misinterpretation of being told I had permitted development after arranging appointments with planning officers on 2 occasions in January and November 2016. My misunderstanding was around the terminology of permitted development rights. Having realised my mistake and with the authorities' sword of Damocles hanging over us, I've complied wholeheartedly with the LPA and kept in touch with 133 communications and suggested to meet and compromise on 21. Contrary to the officer's report, planning was granted on this site in 2002 and I have the application here. We've provided deprived children with a range of activities for 17 years and often this has resulted in children having to come into our house to shelter from inclement weather as the rudimentary building being used was not safe or adequate. I think after 17 years, my wife deserves a break from coming home to find 120 pairs of shoes in the porch, hence the application. It's very much in line with the local and national policy, which states local authorities should plan positively to enhance the beneficial use of the Greenbelt, look for opportunities to provide access for outdoor sport, recreation, enhance landscapes, visual amenity, biodiversity, and to improve damaged and derelict land. The crux of this issue is whether our application meets the bar to being judged as to have very special circumstances which outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt. The factors for very special circumstances don't have to be unique, but I'm sure you will agree that our situation shows a uniqueness and these factors are very different, if not exceptional in themselves. They allow a small farm to diversify into recreation and educating pupils about the very countryside we're trying to protect. We're told that development by definition is harmful, but I believe the harm is outweighed by the health, well-being, social, recreation and educational benefits arising from this application. This in turn amounts to an application with very special circumstances. This fact in itself is innovative and exciting. We become custodians of the immediate area, enabling us to care for the environment while being in a position to educate the next generation. I put all that I have financially into improving the life chances for children at Hyacinth Farm. I'm no farmer, and I don't profess to be, no more than you, or indeed most farmers these days. But I have a passion for the countryside and for educating children about it and getting them out into it and off their games consoles. The NPPF allows for exception for use for recreation and education and sport. Whilst I admit I'm no farmer, I do my fair share of farming sheep, maintaining the countryside and therefore need agricultural items. We may not find one factor at Hyacinth Farm that outweighs the perceived harm, but there are collective factors, the recreation, sport, the education.
Your time's up. Thank you. Members. Councillor Sims.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what have we got here? First of all, I think it's wrong to start and blame our officers here for something that they're doing absolutely correct, and I congratulate and I support it. The other thing is that people in your status in education have, I think, the right to teach about right and wrong. And right and wrong on this, it's wrong. You knew full well that you was building this without permission, which is illegal. And you carried on, and I can see from some of the conservation you weren't prepared to give in, and you've come today. But you had full knowledge that what you was doing was illegal, and it's in the green belt. So therefore, Chair, I won't be supporting this. I think that, in fact, I'll move that we actually take officers' opinion on this and refuse it, and that our enforcement officer deals with it accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
You're moving officer's recommendation for refusal. Is that seconded at this stage?
Can I formally second it?
That's seconded. Any further speakers? I think Councillor Sokol indicated you wanted to speak first, did you? And then Councillor Homewood.
Can I ask officer a couple of things on this application? One is a relevant history of planning. Yeah? Is a 2017 erection or replacement building conditional full planning permission was given. Was this planning permission given to replace the old building on the same site, on footprints or other way?
Through you, Chair, on the application for 2017, the other application, there was an existing building. As you can see, next to the red line boundary here, that was an existing building that we've approved for replacement. But there was no. Yeah, there was nothing. Can you see where the red line boundary is? There's nothing of a formal structure or building there previously.
Yeah, my impression is that the applicant might have built this building on the understanding with already a planning permission in the year 2017. Okay. Can I ask legal officer? You know, one of the the lady, she said, this building will be much used by the children from the ethnic minority where the school head teacher is. Is that comes under any special region because they are working for the community that don't get much help from somewhere else?
Sorry, Councillor Sokol, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me. Is there a special circumstance because the primary users or proposed primary users are from an ethnic, majority ethnic background? Is that what you're asking? No. No. It's a planning matter.
Yeah, I was just going to ask officers, just in terms of the special circumstances, obviously the applicant is putting forward what he believes to be special circumstances in terms of education, and obviously explain some of the work they've done, and I'm sure from that basis it sounds like it's a positive thing for those children. There's obviously a question mark, I suppose, about whether that requires you to have a large building and so on. I just wondered whether, in terms of your assessment, are you saying that any building for that sort of purpose on that site we think is unreasonable, or is it the actual size and stature of that building that's the issue? If it was sort of a quarter of the size or half the size, would it still be the same view from officers, or is it just that it's such a large structure?
It's hypothetical. Officers' opinion is that the running of those activities are not frequent enough to require a building of such size and permanence, and something more temporary could be more appropriate in that instance.
Can I just add that my observation was, what's up with tents? I mean, they want to make the kids get used to outdoors and better acclimatise these days. That's what the government's crying out for as well, as I support. Why do you need a big building? A building that size as well. It's nearly 3 stories. a mover and a seconder, unless anybody else wishes to contribute. No? All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, which is for refusal? Against? Abstention? Move on then.
Applications refused.
Page 135. 102 Gawthorpe Lane, Lepton.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nicholas Hurst, Planning Officer. This application seeks outline permission for a single dwelling within the Greenbelt. Access is a consideration with all other matters reserved. An indicative layout plan has been provided. The next item on the agenda for members is the adjacent site, which can be seen here. So the current proposal is for the application to the front of 102, with the next item being that to the rear. For clarity, two separate decisions will be required, with this showing the current red line plan. This shows the location of the site to the Greenbelt boundary, with the dwelling being on the land currently occupied by the garage, but will be most likely larger. However, scale is a reserved matter. Again, the dwelling would be located to the front or side of 102. The application considers the development to be limited infill within a village. For the reasons detailed within paragraphs 10.7 to 10.14, officers do not consider the site to be within a village or a settlement, therefore being inappropriate development within the Greenbelt. Furthermore, the development would cause significant harm to the openness of the Greenbelt through introducing new built form to an otherwise open site. Therefore, the development would go against the purpose of including land within the Greenbelt. There are no very special circumstances associated with the development which would clearly overcome the identified harm to the Greenbelt as set out within the officer report. Turning to other matters, the application has failed to demonstrate that the development would not cause harm to a local great-crested newt pond, as an ecological method statement which would look to assess and mitigate any harm has not been provided. Considering access to this application, the dwelling to the front, number 102 has two accesses currently. Each dwelling would use one, therefore resulting in one dwelling per access, which is not a material intensification. In closing, officers therefore recommend refusal on the grounds of inappropriate development within the Greenbelt and impact on local ecology. Nothing further to add, Chair.
We have Alison Doonville, who's speaking on behalf of local residents.
Afternoon, Chair, members. I'm speaking today to object to both applications on behalf of local residents of Gawthorpe. Although I'm only going to speak once to avoid unnecessary repetition, please be aware that the residents object to both applications. Gawthorpe is a small settlement in a rural location situated well within the Greenbelt allocation. There are currently only 15 dwellings in Gawthorpe. It's felt that even the construction of just one or two more dwellings would be quite an addition to this small settlement. This would not only have an impact on its rural character and setting, but could potentially set a dangerous precedent for further development in Gawthorpe, or indeed other similar settlements within Kirklees. Inquiries were made by another landowner in 2016 around the issue of whether Gawthorpe could be considered to be a village. At this time, the council confirmed that Gawthorpe is a hamlet and not a village. Surely nothing has changed in the last 2 years that should alter this view. From the residents' point of view, Gawthorpe is not a village. There are only 15 houses along the lane. There's no shops, no church, no school, no bus service that operates down the lane, and no village centre or village green. The Gawthorpe Club, a working men's club, is extremely small and only offers drinks and snacks. It's certainly not considered by local residents to be a community hub or even a typical village pub. In any case, the presence of the Gawthorpe Club alone does not provide adequate justification that Gawthorpe can be defined as a village. I would also like to make the point that the proposed developments cannot be considered as infill development either. Neither site would form part of a continuously built-up frontage, and neither are largely surrounded by existing development. The land surrounding both plots is largely open countryside. Finally, I would like to also question whether either site has the ability to adequately accommodate a dwelling, outdoor amenity space, parking and turning within the confines of the site, and whether sufficient access to and from both sites can be achieved. I realise that these are only outline applications, but the plot in front of number 102 Gawthorpe Lane in particular appears quite small. Could a dwelling even be built on either of these plots without them having a detrimental impact on visual or residential amenity for existing and future occupants? I'm not convinced that they could. In conclusion, given what's been said,
30 seconds. It's
felt that the proposals for infill residential development in this greenbelt location do not comply with either local or national planning policy. Rural areas like Gawthorpe really do need protecting from harmful developments such as those proposed. The impact of such developments would be long-lasting, and on behalf of local residents, I therefore respectfully request that members refuse these applications. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Andrew Keeling, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll just speak once for both applications, Chair. Previous speaker purports to be speaking for the local residents of Gawthorpe, yet there's only one objection to the application, that's from the person next door. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that all the local residents object to the application and all the local residents don't consider that the club next door is a community hub. I think that's a little unfair. In terms of the newts, I see that as a very secondary issue. We're on the very, very edge of the newt sort of zone of consultation. Gawthorpe Lane is the edge of it, and in between our site and the pond there are lots of obstacles. There are buildings, there are mown fields, and this is a garden of the dwelling. So if that becomes the only issue after your deliberations, then we will go away and pay a lot of money to an ecologist to cover that issue, but I see it very much as a technical issue that could be covered. Really today, I think you're considering the Greenbelt issue as the primary point, as the prime issue. And you would only give planning permission if you consider that the site is within a village. You can only do that. That's what the policy says, within a village or a settlement. Well, the point I would make is that you will find no definition anywhere of what constitutes a village or a settlement. Nowhere in policy does it tell you. So it's down to your judgment. And your officer report says that. It's down to your judgment on an individual case-by-case basis. I've no doubt that the plan makers who decided to put this policy together had a lovely picture of a village with a village green and a nice pub with a thatched roof and all post office and everything sat there. But Kirklees doesn't have that kind of element. You get places like Slathwaite, places like Marsden, places like Holmfirth, places like Kirkburton that have pretty big local centres, and they have big hinterlands with those spreading out to Hilltop and up to the Thongs and everywhere. I think those are towns. But what you also get in Kirklees is little groups of buildings, probably based around the textile industries or agricultural industries, like Gawthorpe. And Gawthorpe does have a club. And the way I look at the kind of elements is that you can consider this a village, you could approve a single dwelling, and that Gawthorpe club...
30 seconds.
That Gawthorpe club will get more customers, if you like, and become more of a facility. I think there's a positive element to all of these applications, and I don't see that the expansion of these small rural settlements with single dwellings as infill is actually an issue. I think it's a positive thing and should be supported. Thank you, members.
Members. Councillor Ola.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the ecology survey, my understanding is that time was given and provided from our officers to submit that information. And I'm sorry, but to get to this stage and say we'll go away and we'll spend an X amount of money to get it done, it shouldn't be at this stage. Now, I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation and move for refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Sims, you're seconding that, yes. Councillor Walker, did you wish to speak?
I was also going to offer to second this. I think a number of things. We've been asked to make a judgment on whether or not this constitutes a village. In my opinion, it does not. There are just a few houses. At best, it's a hamlet. I don't think it would even classify as a hamlet, really. I think the size of the plot is inadequate for the building that's proposed. Linked to that, I think the highways issue of access to the road is inadequate. And I think also it would have a detrimental impact on the green belt. So I think there are several reasons why we should support the officer's recommendations.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. That's for officer's recommendation for refusal. Against? Abstentions? Yeah.
Application is refused.
On the second one, we're not going through it, right? Now, can I have your attention, please, with regard to the second one? We've got to formally do the same again. I take it you're moving it for refusal.
I'll move for refusal on the
recommendation.
Yeah. Officer's recommendation.
All those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions?
That's
Thank
refused.
You. 165, and this is for the Joseph Priestley Building, University of Huddersfield.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. This application seeks the erection of a 4-storey education building for the University of Huddersfield. The building is currently unnamed, but is referred to as the Applied Science Building. The site is located within the centre of the Queensgate campus. For context on this image, it was located where the mouse cursor is now, with the ring road being here and Queensgate Market there. The site shows an overview of the application site taken from the Schwann building and shows examples of a variety of buildings within the campus. For example, the Harold Wilson building to the right, the Bronte Lecture Theatre to the left, and St Paul's Hall just off to the right as well. The site was previously a car park and hosted 63 car parking spaces. These have been replaced at Queen Street South car park over a year ago. This is part of the university's ongoing commitment to move the majority of parking outside of the campus. The site has been used as a storage and building yard since. So the current image shows the north elevation to the top and the east to the bottom, and then the south to the top. The building will connect to a link extension which has recently been completed to the Joseph Priestley building. The site, in regards to scale, it would be taller than the adjacent Bronte Lecture Theatre. It would be equivalent to height to the adjacent Harold Wilson building and the adjoining Joseph Priestley building. The University campus building and others in the area have varied heights, and the proposed building will not appear out of keeping in this regard. Construction materials are to include stone, aluminium cladding and glazed panels, along with red terracotta. We do have a sample here for review by members, which is sharp. That is not a sample of the profile that will be available, and I do have images of that if you so wish, but that is the colour and the actual material itself. Officers consider the terracotta to be a high-quality material which will contribute to the unique and interesting aspect of the building. The proposal includes landscaping a pedestrian area linking Rifle Street to University Square, as can be shown along here, with this photo taken from Rifle Street. And here is the current landscaping plan. The landscaping plan is supported by officers as well and is considered a great enhancement to the public realm around the university. The report in front of members outlines the Planning Authority's considerations on the proposal. In summary, officers consider that the proposal will improve the facilities and growth of the university to the benefit of Huddersfield as a whole. The design is considered to be of a high quality that will enhance the built environment and will become another example of exemplary architecture within Huddersfield. Furthermore, the development will enrich the public realm within the campus. As detailed within the update, due to a late submission of a drainage assessment, Yorkshire Water and the lead local authority were delayed in their response. This is now being received. A further update from today, the Yorkshire Water comments would either require a modest change to the landscaping plan or the diversion of a public sewer, which may be addressed through a condition or amended plans prior to determination. The university has today decided to go with a condition as opposed to amendment. Because there is a change in the recommendation, officers now recommend that the application be approved, subject to conditions, as no further negotiations are required. No public representations have been received. Nothing further to add, Chair.
We have Colin Blair from the university. I don't know if I leave the microphone or not. I guess you do this with webcam.
Right, is that better? Sorry to come back so soon. I know we've just been with a £30 million project, but here's another 18 that we intend to spend very quickly and have opened for September 19. So we'll run this in parallel with the Barbara Hepworth building. The reason for doing this is we've seen a gap in the market that we intend to plug very quickly against our competitors. We're going to expand science, which will be a benefit both to the university and to the town. The building over 4 floors, 3 floors will be for science activities that we currently as a university don't undertake. That will include us starting ophthalmics for the first time and widening the base of science that we undertake in Huddersfield. The top floor is something that we're looking at which will be fairly unique, certainly within the region. This will be a super lab, like the other 2 super labs in the building, but it will be aimed at sixth form colleges. So what we want to do there is introduce students at sixth form to actually science in a university setting. What we're trying to do is encourage people to come into science at that age and actually lock them into both the University of Huddersfield and actually staying into the town and developing within the region. As I say, it's another £18 million investment. The building is very modern, the way it looks, but I will assure you that, as we always do, it's based in stone, and it will be stone that's sourced locally. Again, we'll work with local suppliers, as we have done on Barbara Hepworth, and we will, wherever possible, spend locally. So I'd urge you to approve this, because we do need to get cracking, and we do need to get the students in 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, yeah, is that...
One more speaker. Oh, sorry. Ian Bath, who's the planning agent.
Right.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Thank you. We do have the project architect with us. If there were any specific design questions, he's just arrived. I thought it would be useful, rather than to talk about the project per se, to give members some clarity on a couple of wider points. And they relate to the university framework on car parking and drop-off. You may well know from previous applications that the university run a travel plan, which we update every year, and we share that with the council and the highways officers. And that deals with parking provision, it deals with drop-off facilities and pick-up facilities. And that is an ongoing review process. And I think it's important because it's linked in with this application to the university's desire to make the entire Queensgate campus, apart from the necessary deliveries, car-free or vehicle-free. And you will pick up from one of the slides that Nick showed you that part of this proposal is a large improvement to the university realm area within the Queensgate campus, and that is an ongoing framework point. I think the other thing I wanted to mention, and it started to come on the radar a little bit in the course of the last two applications, is the comments that we're receiving from counter-terrorism officers. We had it on Barbara Hepworth, and we've had them on this. I know there's a suggestion to deal with this by way of condition. The university have a major incident plan, as you might expect from a large public body, and the counter-terrorism officer is involved in dialogue regularly with the university on that basis. I would urge, and will be urging, that to take place more often than the CTO coming up with planning applications and seeking to install design components to those that are either unviable or just simply can't work for the university. So I thought that was a useful context. It sort of brings members up to speed a little bit with what the university are doing separately to buildings. Clearly it's an incredibly important scheme, as they always are for us. I would like you to run with the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Members, Councillor Sokol and Councillor Walker, Councillor Mark. Then I'll take another tranche.
Mr. Chair, I'm not going to ask any question, but I'm going to say that I've been on last few planning applications coming up by the Huddersfield University. Every time these brilliant people working behind the scene, yeah, they every time they brought up this application with the new and well-designed buildings, yeah, and we kept approving those. I think these people, Huddersfield University, they have put the Huddersfield University and the Huddersfield on the national and international maps. So I'm going to move officer recommendation to approve this application again. Thank you.
Seconded. Was it Councillor Walker, then Councillor Mudge?
Thank you, Chair. I applaud the ambition of the university to develop this applied science facility. I think there's a real need for this to serve the young people of Kirklees and beyond, and I think it will be very significant for the development of our local economy. I particularly welcome the plans to have outreach facilities so that students from local colleges can come in and experience working in a university environment. And I hope that that will be extended to younger students in schools. The design of the building, I think, is good. I think it's ambitious, interesting use of materials and so on. So overall, I strongly support this application.
Yes, Councillor Margin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, fully supportive of the application. When you were talking about spending time down there in the sixth form, that brought back happy memories. Paul Dixon and I, in the summer of 1984, spent a few days down at the university. I think it was the Ramsden building then, playing with a nuclear magnetic resonator, very much a forerunner of the M&R machines that you use in medical, and it was fascinating stuff, and I really did enjoy that. It skipped a generation because my sons are now both much more scientifically minded than I am. I think the question, the concern about that is actually making. I mean, obviously, my eldest is studying applied sciences at Kirklees College. Hopefully, if he progresses, he'll have some connection to the university in the future. And it is making sure we've got an integrated approach to that with our schools and colleges across Kirklees to make sure the Huddersfield University is a key part of that. And also employers as well, particularly when applying apprenticeships and stuff like that. If we've got an integrated approach to it, and I'm sure you will have, but I think that is really important, that we're not doing something that's separate from what's going on. And having been down there for the STEM Open evening a few months ago, actually, there's some really exciting stuff going down at the university. In terms of design, I do appreciate the design of the building, but it's looking at it's just the feeling of the whole campus, isn't it? So the building that's been done in and around the Harold Wilson building, you've got some quite tall buildings, you've got some open spaces. Sometimes the landscaping feels a bit hard. I only see it passing through. And again, you've got an enclosed space there. it is just that thing where you've got tall building, open spaces surrounded by relatively tall buildings. What is that going to be a sort of space to sort of sit in and stuff like that? Now, that might be the nature of, you know, you're working in a particular space in Huddersfield, and other parts of Huddersfield you've got tall buildings, you know, looking on the railway station side. It'd be interesting, and particularly saying you've got applications coming through in quick succession. I think in the past we've talked about what's the overall plan for the whole of the university quarter, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, not just for students, but perhaps encouraging other residents, from, you know, residents and visitors to Huddersfield to actually enjoy that space as well. So I think it has been addressed in what the planning officer says, but it just is a bit of a concern with where you've got these tall buildings surrounding relatively small open spaces. Thank you.
Councillor, do you want to make a contribution, although at this stage I can't see that we need to do other than endorse it?
No, I mean, other than, you know, applications like this are great because they're high impact, you know, well thought through, clearly well financed, and they're really well thought through, and obviously welcome this application. I think the colour is okay, but well, it's not my preferred colour, but you know, well done to a really well thought design. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. As expected, unanimous. Thank you. We move now to page 181, and it's the Fixby Junior and Infant School, Lightridge Road, Fixby.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Neil. The application's been, the extension will be to the north-eastern end. That's the building at the moment. There's a canopy on the front, and this is a picture of the building to the rear where the extension would go. There would be 2 car parking spaces lost here, but they would be provided elsewhere within the site, and a condition secures that would be the case. The site's located in urban green space, and the proposed modular building, given its educational use, is appropriate for this site. The design would be in keeping with the existing building, same colour, same materials, which is considered to be acceptable. In terms of highway safety, there'd be no increase in children going to the preschool, which is considered to be acceptable. I draw members to the update in relation to comments received from local residents in relation to highway safety, where planning officers have looked into those comments further. It's acknowledged that there's a long-standing issue of parking problems around the school, but these have been looked into in the past by the council, and there is a traffic management scheme which should be adhered to, and also the school needs to take some responsibility for the parking issues. Notwithstanding this, the current scheme is just for the extension to the modular building, which is not considered to be detrimental to highway safety, and the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Right, in the absence of any representation here, we have a letter that has been requested to read out. So Richard's going to read it to you, and then we'll take your comments.
Thank you, Chair. This is from Jackie Donlon, who wished to highlight highways issues before the committee makes a decision on this application. So I'll read what she's put. This application is not for an increase in children at this time. However, since Kirklees Preschool Group relocated to the grounds of Fixby School in 2006, brackets planning approval given in 2004, the problems have increased significantly. Problems exacerbate further when in 2016 2 separate applications were made to relax conditions set out in the original application of 2004. These were as follows: a variation on condition 5, which was an increase of opening hours by a variation of start and finish times; a variation of conditions 3, which was an increase in the number of children. She says, having lived on Lightbridge Road for many years, I've witnessed not only the escalation of illegal and dangerous parking, but also the vile abuse, both verbal and physical, directed at residents who have challenged those who choose to ignore restrictions around the site, prevent neighbours having access to their own properties and using a bridle path for parking. Ironically, both the preschool group and Fixby School are sympathetic and acknowledge the problem. However, they are not willing to challenge for fear of retribution. The report by Head of Strategic Investment, which you have before you today, makes clear that all the issues which have been raised are not for consideration by the local planning authority. Throughout this report, reference is made many times that it is for other agencies to address. Those mentioned are highways, safety, street scene, police, councils, planning enforcement team, and Cowcliff Preschool Traffic Management Plan. One could be forgiven for thinking how fortunate we are to have access to all these services to address the problem. Unfortunately, the reality is very different, which is why I'm making representation to you today. Despite continued requests for support, and Councillor Calvert can confirm this, the reality is very, very different. Details of this can be viewed in my objection and comments. Therefore, to ensure both children and local residents, the majority of whom are elderly, are all safeguarded, I would like you to consider some options. First, cameras placed to monitor parking restrictions around the school and the bridle path. A financial penalty for inconsiderate parking would, I'm sure, solve the problem. Second, over time, this would be a cheaper option than having the area police, whether it be by PCSO, highways, police, thus freeing manpower to be used elsewhere. Consideration given to permanently closing the entrance to the school site from Gilly-Roy Lane, and extending times on the no stopping signs to reflect the increase in operating hours. Thank you for taking time to hear this. Sit, Chair.
Members, Councillor Homewood.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty clear from the presentation that we've had and the representation from the member of the public that the issue that we've got here isn't specifically in relation to this application, and as I understand it, this application is just about extending the use of the building for storage, so there is no impact in terms of the number of children on the site or other people on the site or change to the highway infrastructure or anything like that. There's obviously a wider issue about traffic, parking and the nature of the school and people coming to it to pick children up, and that's obviously not unique for this school, but obviously there's been a lot of issues over time. I do think it sounds from the representation, I don't know the details, that perhaps there were some cases in the past where some relaxation was made to the usage and the numbers of children that wasn't consulted, or the residents feel wasn't fully consulted with them and taken into consideration on the traffic plan. And I do know that over time, just for demographic reasons, that in that particular school there's a lot more children who use that school who don't live in the local area, i.e. live within further away and travel by car where they perhaps walked in the past. So certainly I don't think it's specific to this application, but as a ward councillor I agree that to sort of take away this issue and look at with the school and the council and the police and other partners how we can maybe put something in place to help with the issues that are being raised by the objector. But I think the objector and I both realise that it isn't specific to this application, and so I have no issue with the application in that sense.
Any further submissions? Anybody that wishes to move whatever?
Can I just move it, because it's obvious that the application has nothing to do about, as Councillor Homewood said, about the number of... The objection seems to be about the running of the school rather than the application, and it's not relevant to this planning application, so I'd like to propose we follow office recommendation.
Is that seconded? Yeah. Yes. All those in favour, please show. No. Finally, page 195, 5 Copthorne Gardens, Bradley, Huddersfield.
Thank you, Chair. This application is to re-roof the building that's shown on screen now with a new roof. It's brought to committee because the agent works in building control. It's recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ola.
Move officer's recommendation.
Seconded, Councillor Marchington. All those in favour? Thank you. That concludes this meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.